The exact moment Chloe Bell traded me for a millionaire, my debit card declined for $11.40. It happened at a rooftop party above downtown Halcyon. Beneath strings of gold lights Brent Lawson had arranged to look accidental. One second, Chloe was holding my hand beside the dessert table. The next, she was telling 50 classmates that love was not enough when one person had a future and the other only had excuses. Brent stood behind her in a white dinner jacket, smiling as if he had already purchased the scene. At 24, he had a penthouse, a silver Veyron he photographed more often than his mother, and a software company called CrownStream, valued at $8 million. I was 21, wore shoes repaired with black tape, and had just been rejected by a payment terminal while trying to buy Chloe the strawberry soda she liked. The laughter did not begin loudly. It moved in little breaths around the roof, which somehow hurt worse. Chloe would not meet my eyes. She said she had spent 2 years waiting for me to stop being almost talented. Then Brent slipped an arm around her waist and announced that she would be joining CrownStream as his executive assistant. He leaned close enough for only me to hear. You kept her warm while I built a life worth entering. I wanted to punch him. Instead, I picked up the cheap silver ring Chloe had set beside my dead card. It was not an engagement ring, just a promise ring I had bought after coding 3 nights for a campus bookstore. On the inner band I had engraved "When we make it." Brent noticed and laughed. When? He asked. That word is where poor people hide. Before I could answer, every light in the city seemed to sharpen. Thin lines of pale gold appeared around objects across the roof. Watches, phones, paintings, even the catering trays. A calm voice spoke inside my head. Hidden fortune system activated. Existing value may be recognized. Stolen value may be restored. Unclaimed value may be pursued. No fortune may be fabricated. I thought humiliation had finally broken something in my brain. Then a translucent line appeared above Brent's watch. Replica casing. Authentic movement. Resale value. $1,840. Outstanding secured debt attached to wearer. $6,420,000. Above Chloe's new company badge I saw. Access credential linked to CrownStream emergency repository. Above my cracked phone, the brightest line of all appeared. Ghostlight compression architecture. Original creator. Mason Reed. Contractual ownership reverts at midnight due to non-payment clause. Estimated emergency licensing value tonight. $2,800,000 to $4,100,000. Time remaining, 0 hours 47 minutes and 18 seconds. Ghostlight was code I had written at 19 for a dorm room startup. Brent had offered me $5,000 for it, paid only the first $500, then buried my name when CrownStream launched. I had been too ashamed and too broke to challenge him. Now the system showed me the exact clause I had forgotten, the time-stamped hash on an old student server, and 3 streaming networks currently losing nearly $200,000 a minute because their compression provider had failed. I looked at Chloe one final time. I did not beg, shout, or reveal what I had seen. I only asked whether this was truly her choice. Her jaw trembled, but she said yes. That answer mattered. I slid the ring into my pocket and walked away while Brent told everyone I was running home to cry. In the elevator, I called the only person who had ever believed Ghostlight belonged to me, Iris Kane, a 22-year-old forensic accounting student who had once threatened to report Brent after reviewing our startup contract. She answered on the first ring and said, "If this is about Chloe, I'm not helping you commit murder." I told her it was about Clause 17. Silence. Then I heard a chair fall over. "Send me everything," she said. "And Mason? Do not sign anything, no matter how desperate they sound." For 47 minutes, we moved faster than fear. Iris verified the missed payment through bank records, filed a digital notice of reversion, and contacted the university archive custodian while I rebuilt the deployable package from my phone backup in a 24-hour copy shop. At 11:58, CrownStream's attorney emailed a retroactive payment and demanded confirmation that their license remained active. Iris replied with 2 words, "Too late." At midnight, the gold line changed. Ownership restored. At 12:04, Meridian Live called. Their championship broadcast had frozen in 14 countries, and Ghostlight was the only tested architecture that could stabilize low-bandwidth delivery before dawn. I negotiated badly at first, because my hands would not stop shaking. Iris muted the call and told me, "You are not selling your miracle. You are licensing 1 night of access and retaining the patent rights." When she unmuted, I asked for a $2 million emergency fee, 6% of savings, creator credit, and independent audit rights. Their executive agreed so quickly I thought I had misunderstood. At 3:17 a.m., the system showed the wire pending. At 5:42, the outage ended. At 6:03, $2 million appeared in an escrow account under my name. After taxes, legal reserves, and Iris's emergency fee, I was still a millionaire before the rooftop staff had finished sweeping up Brent's champagne glasses. Yet the first thing I felt was not triumph. It was terror. I had spent years imagining money as a locked door. Now the door had vanished, and beyond it stood everyone who had ever profited from keeping me outside. By 7 that morning, Brent knew. He called 11 times, then sent a photograph of Chloe asleep against the passenger window of his car, with the message, "You can buy servers, but you cannot buy back what matters." I deleted the photograph and saved the message. Iris was sitting across from me in a plastic booth at an all-night noodle shop, wearing yesterday's charcoal blazer over a faded astronomy shirt. Her black hair was twisted into a pencil-held knot, and there was printer ink on her cheek. She looked nothing like the women in Brent's rooftop photographs. She looked tired, dangerous, and completely unimpressed by my new bank balance. "Your first millionaire decision," she said, tapping my untouched bowl, "is whether you want revenge or a life." The system illuminated her battered leather folder. Kane Asset Recovery Notes. Unfunded research. Verified recovery rate, 91%. Hidden value if supported ethically. Exceptional. I dismissed the display because measuring Iris felt invasive. She noticed my stare anyway. "If you are about to tell me money has changed how luminous I look, I will invoice you for emotional damage." I laughed for the first time since Chloe left. Then two men in CrownStream jackets entered the restaurant. One was Brent's chief technology officer, Evan Rusk, who had watched me write Ghostlight and later testified that I had contributed only interface code. He carried a contract offering me $3 million for total ownership, a non-disclosure agreement, and a public statement calling the reversion a clerical misunderstanding. The other man placed a slim laptop on our table. A video call opened, and Brent appeared from his penthouse with Chloe standing behind him in one of his shirts. The image was deliberate. He congratulated me, called me the luckiest rejected boyfriend alive, and explained that CrownStream had already told investors Ghostlight was company property. If I refused, their lawyers would freeze the Meridian payment, accuse me of stealing trade secrets, and make sure every network associated my name with extortion. Chloe whispered that I should accept. $3 million is more than we ever dreamed of," she said, using "we" as if the previous night had not happened. I looked at the contract through the system. Concealed condition. Signer assumes liability for CrownStream outage loss. Projected exposure. $18 million, 700,000. Brent was offering me a jeweled bear trap. I asked Evan whether he had read Appendix 9. His eyes flickered. Iris caught it. She requested a printed copy, circled 3 connected definitions, and calmly explained that the agreement transferred their damages to me while allowing CrownStream to sue for future defects. The two men stopped pretending to be friendly. Brent's face hardened on the screen. "You think one lucky clause makes you my equal?" he asked. "No," I said. "Your debts make us equals. My code makes me useful." I rejected the offer and sent Meridian a preservation notice containing my original repository hashes. Before leaving, Evan bent near me and murmured that Brent did not lose in public. The system traced a dim gold line from his laptop to an encrypted folder. Ghostlight derivative source. Evidence of unauthorized copying. Location, CrownStream development floor. Claim requires lawful access. It was tempting to grab the computer. The system immediately warned that stolen evidence would invalidate the claim. That was when I understood its real rule. It did not reward greed. It revealed doors, but I still had to choose which ones I could live with walking through. Iris and I spent the morning forming Reed's Signal, a company with exactly 2 temporary employees and 1 terrifyingly expensive attorney. I paid my mother's overdue mortgage anonymously through an escrow service, cleared the hospital balance that had followed us since my father died, and put everything else behind dual signature controls so I could not become reckless alone. Iris refused equity when I offered it. She demanded a real contract, market salary, and authority to veto any recovery that relied on coercion. "If you want a grateful girl beside you," she said, "hire an actress. If you want me, give me the power to tell you no." I gave her the power. By noon, clips of my rejection had reached 6 million views. Brent's caption, "She chose a builder, not a dreamer," turned me into a joke before anyone learned about Meridian. Chloe gained 100,000 followers. My inbox filled with strangers, calling me pathetic, opportunistic, or secretly brilliant. Then Meridian issued its announcement, crediting Ghostlight and naming me as its creator. The market changed direction in minutes. Reporters arrived outside the noodle shop. Students who had laughed on the roof posted that they had always supported me. 3 venture funds offered meetings. My balance was the same, but the faces around me had transformed, and that frightened me more than their contempt. On the way out, a young delivery rider recognized me and asked for investment in a battery swapping idea. The system drew gold around a grease-stained notebook in his hand. Prototype feasible. Founder undervalued due to lack of credentials. Potential 5-year enterprise value, $42 million. I could have handed him cash and played savior. Instead, I asked his name, read the notebook, and introduced him to Iris. His name was Leo Park. He was 20, and he had been rejected by every campus incubator because his grades were average and his accent thickened when nervous. We funded a safety test, not a fantasy. That choice became the first brick of a reputation Brent could not understand. I did not invest in whatever looked rich. I found the things rich people had trained themselves not to see. 3 weeks later, Reed's Signal occupied the back half of a closed laundromat because Iris said marble offices were where young companies went to cosplay as dead ones. Our team had grown to 6, Leo and 2 engineering students testing his battery modules, a quiet contracts graduate named Priya, my old roommate Dex handling network security, and Iris, who controlled our money with the tenderness of a prison warden. I slept on a folding cot between servers and woke most mornings to find a coffee beside my keyboard. Iris always claimed it had appeared through depreciation. We recovered royalties for a music student whose voice had trained a popular synthetic singer, returned a delivery routing patent to a mechanic whose employer forged his waiver, and licensed Ghostlight to 2 regional networks under transparent terms. Every recovery produced experience in the system, but only when the original owner received meaningful control. New abilities appeared subtly. I could trace chains of ownership, distinguish market hype from durable value, and see when a contract's language concealed asymmetric risk. The system never predicted people's choices. That limitation saved me from treating everyone like numbers. It also left me vulnerable to Chloe. She came to the laundromat on a rainy Thursday wearing a cream coat I remembered Brent buying the night after the party. Dex wanted to throw her out. Iris asked whether I wanted privacy. I said no to both. Chloe stood among drying racks and humming servers, watching Leo argue with a thermal sensor, and seemed offended that my life had continued without her. She said Brent planned to sue me within 48 hours for stealing Ghostlight, and that he possessed repository logs proving CrownStream employees wrote the core modules first. I asked why she was warning me. She answered with the truth closest to the surface, because she did not want me destroyed. The system revealed a deeper fact attached to the flash drive in her fist. Edited access logs. Original copy deleted from CrownStream server but retained in device cache. Possessor aware of alteration. I could have exposed her immediately. Instead, I asked whether she had modified the records. Her face became still. She said Brent had ordered her to transfer files, not alter them. Iris pressed gently. Had Chloe seen someone else make the changes? Chloe looked toward the door and whispered that the building cameras would show she had visited us. Then she placed the drive on a washer. Take the settlement when he offers it, she said. You do not know what he owns. I replied, neither do you. For a moment, the girl I had loved returned, the one who ate instant noodles on my dorm floor while I coded, who could tell whether I was lying by the way I scratched my thumb. She stepped close and touched the repaired seam on my jacket. You got rich, she said softly. Why are you still dressing like the boy I left? Her perfume, the rain, and the memory of her mouth on mine made my body betray the clean anger I wanted. I moved back. Because the boy you left built this, I said. I am not ashamed of him anymore. Iris studied the drive without touching it. After Chloe left, she told me the visit was bait. The metadata would likely trigger an accusation that we had received stolen corporate information. She was right. At 5 that evening, federal cybercrime investigators entered with a warrant based on CrownStream's report that Chloe's drive contained proprietary code. We surrendered it unopened and provided security footage showing exactly how it arrived. Brent had designed a choice where greed or panic would condemn us. We chose procedure. The investigators found no CrownStream code on our systems, but they seized 2 servers, slowing our current contracts. Online, Brent called the search proof that my overnight fortune came from theft. Meridian paused its second license. Our employees received threats. Leo asked if his project would die because he had trusted me. I wanted to promise it would not, but promises without control were how Brent had stolen Ghostlight. I told him the truth. We might lose, but his design and ownership were already documented where no one could erase them. That night, Iris and I sat alone on the laundromat roof under a plastic awning. She had cut her palm moving a server, and I wrapped it with gauze while rain drummed above us. Her fingers rested in mine a second longer than necessary. You keep looking at me like you are waiting for permission, she murmured. I asked permission. She leaned forward, close enough that I felt her breath, then stopped. Not while you are bleeding from Chloe, she said. I want to be wanted as myself, not as evidence you survived her. It was not rejection. It was a boundary so precise that I respected her more for drawing it. We sat shoulder to shoulder until dawn, warmth moving through our sleeves, while below us the servers blinked like a small city refusing to go dark. Brent filed his lawsuit on Monday and offered to withdraw it if I sold Ghostlight for $1, surrendered every future derivative, and recorded a public apology. His legal team requested an emergency injunction freezing the Meridian funds. He expected my staff to scatter once salaries became uncertain. Instead, Iris had placed 6 months of payroll in an independent trust on our second day. Brent then pressured our landlord, purchased the laundromat building through a shell company, and delivered a 7-day eviction notice. The system traced the purchase through 4 entities to a lender already exposed to CrownStream's debt. Direct retaliation would violate a covenant in Brent's credit agreement, but proving control required records we could not lawfully access. He knew exactly where the line stood and danced behind it. That was what made him dangerous. He was not a spoiled fool with a sports car. He had spent years converting other people's shame into leverage. My poverty had been useful because it made me accept $500 and stay silent. Chloe's fear of instability was useful because it made his cage resemble shelter. Evan's compromised testimony was useful because guilt made obedience cheaper than loyalty. I stopped asking how to defeat Brent and began asking what value he was hiding. The system led us first to CrownStream's own customer complaints. Thousands of small creators reported lost archives after the company migrated storage systems. The terms classified their footage as abandoned after 90 days, allowing CrownStream to train recommendation models on it. Legal, perhaps, but ethically rotten. Then Priya found a conflict. Several creators were minors when they accepted the terms, making transfer of certain rights voidable. We contacted them through a non-profit advocate, not as clients we could exploit. Within days, 32 filed claims. Brent retaliated by announcing a charity grant for young artists and calling our work an ambulance chase. His move was effective. Public sentiment shifted. So, we did something he did not expect. We published our fee structure, capped our recovery share, and gave each creator the right to replace us. Transparency cost short-term profit and made the system flare brighter than I had ever seen. Fortune tier increased, the inner voice told me. Hidden value includes trust that survives inspection. That evening, Dex recovered something from my old university account. An automated email proving the Ghostlight hash had been archived 6 months before CrownStream's claimed creation date. It should have ended the authorship dispute. Instead, the opposing counsel produced a witness statement from Chloe saying she had seen me copy Brent's architecture while we dated. I read her signature 3 times. The room narrowed. Iris did not tell me Chloe had been forced. She did not call her evil. She simply asked what evidence could be tested. That discipline kept me from breaking. We requested Chloe's deposition. Brent agreed immediately, which meant he believed her fear would hold. The deposition took place in a glass conference room 30 floors above the city. Chloe wore pearl earrings and answered in a voice polished of every memory. She said I had always been obsessed with Brent, that I copied code after sneaking into a startup showcase, and that my romantic gifts were funded by stolen freelance payments. The lies were clever because they braided real humiliations into fiction. Our attorney asked whether Brent had promised her anything in exchange. She said no. Through the system, I saw the pearl earrings hidden record, purchased from a CrownStream expense account one day before the affidavit, linked to an apartment lease in Chloe's mother's name and a private treatment payment for her younger brother. Brent had not merely bought her. He had located every person she could not bear to endanger. We could expose the payments and destroy her credibility, but her brother's medical privacy would become public. Iris requested a break. In the hallway, I said we had to use it. She asked whether winning justified turning a sick 19-year-old into content. I hated that she was right. More than that, I hated that part of me wanted her to be wrong. We returned and took another route. Our attorney asked Chloe to identify one line of allegedly stolen code. She could not. Asked what language Ghostlight was written in. She guessed Python. Its core was Rust. Asked where the showcase occurred. She named a building that had been closed that semester. Her story cracked without us revealing her family. Brent called the mistakes nervousness, but the judge denied the immediate freeze and ordered independent source review. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded us. Chloe slipped through them and seized my wrist near the parking structure. Why didn't you show the payments? She demanded. I asked how she knew we had them. Her eyes filled. Brent had told her the system or whatever impossible trick I possessed would uncover everything, and that my revenge would consume her family. He said you wanted me ruined, she whispered. Did you? I answered honestly. For one night, yes. She flinched. Then I remembered I loved you once. I did not want that love to become the ugliest thing about me. She kissed my cheek, a desperate touch without romance, and walked back toward Brent's waiting car. Across the street, Iris had seen it. Jealousy flashed over her face before she mastered it, and that small, unguarded emotion made my heart move in a direction wealth could not predict. The independent review confirmed that Ghostlight was mine, but Brent had prepared for that loss. CrownStream's board announced that Ghostlight was obsolete, Meridian's rescue had been exaggerated, and a superior engine called Monarch would launch within a month. Investors applauded. The lawsuit continued under narrower claims, keeping our legal costs high, while Brent invited Leo to dinner and offered him $800,000 for the battery prototype. Leo refused, but the offer frightened him because it was more money than anyone in his family had ever seen. I told him refusing was not automatically brave, and accepting was not automatically betrayal. He needed to understand the terms. Iris and I reviewed them with him. Brent's agreement paid only after regulatory approval, transferred all present and future designs immediately, and allowed dismissal for any reputational inconsistency. Leo laughed bitterly. So he buys my life for a lottery ticket. We helped him counter with licensing terms and real guarantees. Brent withdrew the offer, then hired an influencer to claim Leo's batteries overheated. Our certified tests refuted it, but doubt spread faster than correction. I began using the system constantly, scanning every object, account, and conversation for the hidden advantage that would end the war. The more I searched, the more everything became a label. A cafe was not a place to breathe. It was an undervalued lease. A musician on the subway was a catalog with licensing potential. Even Iris's smile made me wonder what fear it concealed. One night, she closed my laptop and said, "You are doing to the world what Brent does. He sees leverage. You see hidden value. If neither of you sees people, the difference is branding." I snapped that Brent was trying to erase us. She replied that survival did not require surrendering my humanity. We argued until Dex and Priya quietly left. I accused her of treating poverty like a philosophical exercise because she had never watched a hospital refuse her father's treatment. Iris went pale. Then she told me her own father had gone to prison when she was 16 for signing fraudulent valuations at a property fund. Her mother lost their home paying lawyers. Iris learned asset recovery because numbers had been used to disguise theft, and she refused to help another charming young man believe accuracy made him moral. I apologized, but she said apologies were worthless without changed behavior. She suspended her system veto role for 48 hours and told me to decide whether I wanted a partner or an obedient conscience. The room felt colder after she left, The inner voice offered no mission, no solution. Only a line appeared across my reflection in the dark monitor. Unrecognized liability, isolation. That was the first time the system valued something inside me. I went to Iris's apartment the next evening carrying no flowers, no expensive apology, only the ledger of every decision I had made since Meridian. I showed her where I had overridden caution, where anger had shaped investment, and where I had begun tracking Chloe like an enemy asset. Then I gave Iris permanent authority to halt any deal until an independent ethics panel reviewed it, including deals I personally wanted. She read the amendment at her kitchen table while I waited. "This could cost you millions," she said. "Then it is real authority," she signed. The rain outside softened. I told her I had wanted to kiss her on the laundromat roof, and the desire had not faded with my anger toward Chloe. It had grown each time Iris challenged me, laughed at me, or protected someone who could never repay her. "That is a dangerously competent confession," she said. I asked permission again. This time she pulled me gently by the collar. Her kiss was warm and deliberate, without the frantic hunger of proving something. My hands settled at her waist, hers slid into my hair. For several breathless seconds, the lawsuit, the money, and the system vanished. When we parted, her forehead rested against mine. "We go slowly," she whispered. Slowly, I agreed, though my pulse had sprinted ahead of us. We spent the night talking on her couch, our legs tangled under a blanket, and fell asleep before sunrise. In the morning, the system displayed no valuation over her, only a simple sentence: "Some fortunes cannot be owned." I dismissed it with a smile. Then Chloe called from a blocked number and said Brent planned to make CrownStream collapse on purpose. Chloe met us in the children's wing of a public hospital, because it was the one place Brent's security team could not follow without attracting attention. Her brother was receiving treatment 2 floors above. She looked thinner than she had at the deposition, and there was a bruise around her wrist she claimed came from a door. Iris did not press her, but she moved so Chloe could sit closest to the exit. Chloe explained that CrownStream's apparent debt was not a weakness Brent feared. It was part of a plan. He had pledged company shares against loans, moved valuable patents and customer contracts into shell entities he controlled, and intended to trigger a default after Monarch's launch. Ordinary shareholders, employees, and creators would be left with a hollow company, while Brent's private entity bought the remains cheaply. The supposedly superior Monarch engine was built from Ghostlight derivatives and a recommendation model trained on disputed creator footage. If it launched, Brent would raise a final investment round before the collapse. Chloe had transferred schedules and overheard his lawyers, but she had no clean documents. Brent kept her close because her public choice of him humiliated me and made her useful in the lawsuit. He had also paid her brother's bills, then threatened to stop if she changed her testimony. "I thought choosing him meant I would never feel powerless again," she said. "I only chose a more expensive kind of powerlessness." She asked me to use my mysterious ability to destroy him. I said I could not reveal what did not exist and could not steal proof. She laughed without humor. "Then what good is being special?" Iris answered before I could. "It helps him know where honest work might matter. We created a lawful path." Chloe would correct her deposition, request whistleblower protection through counsel, and provide only records she was authorized to access in her role. Reed Signal would not pay her, promise romance, or make her family's medical care conditional. I arranged an anonymous grant through the hospital's existing fund so her brother's treatment could continue regardless of her decision. Chloe stared at me when she learned the money could not be traced to her cooperation. "You would have done anything for me once," she said. I confused that with weakness. I told her I had confused being needed with being loved. The words hurt us both, but they also ended something cleanly. 2 days later, Chloe recanted her affidavit. Brent released edited messages, making it appear that I had bribed her with medical payments. The public believed him because the sequence looked perfect. Abandoned boyfriend becomes rich, pays ex-girlfriend's family, receives testimony. Our attorney warned that even if we proved innocence eventually, Meridian and our investors might leave immediately. Iris convened the ethics panel and disclosed the grant before reporters discovered it. We waived the hospital's donor anonymity only for an independent judge, protecting the brother's name. More importantly, we published our communication logs showing Chloe's disclosure began before the grant existed and that she had no control over the funds. Brent responded with a live interview. Calm, wounded, and devastatingly articulate, he said, I had turned charity into a weapon and accused Iris of designing the arrangement. He displayed a screenshot of her father's fraud conviction and asked whether financial deception ran in families. I watched Iris's face freeze as millions of viewers learned the shame she had carried since 16. Rage flooded me so hard the system's gold outlines turned red. It revealed Brent's penthouse lien, the borrowed Veyron, his offshore art, a secret relationship with a married investor, and enough private humiliation to bury him under gossip. I could release it all anonymously. My finger hovered above the export command. Iris placed her hand over mine. If you use his private life because he used mine, she said, voice shaking, then he chooses who we become. We released only material tied to investor harm. The debt covenants, related party shell companies already visible in public filings, and a plain explanation of the alleged collapse strategy. No affair. No family. No fake watch. The evidence was incomplete, but it invited regulators and journalists to inspect the right places. 3 former employees contacted our attorneys within 24 hours. One had designed Monarch and possessed version histories showing unauthorized Ghostlight code. Another had objected to the creator data transfer and saved board minutes under a mandatory compliance policy. The third was Evan Rusk. He asked for immunity, a job, and enough money to disappear. The system showed that his testimony could verify the scheme but also that he had helped create it. I refused to purchase silence or erase consequences. We offered independent counsel and protection for truthful cooperation, nothing more. Evan nearly walked. Then Chloe entered the mediation room and told him Brent would abandon him exactly as he had abandoned everyone else. Evan signed. The whistleblowers gave us a case, not immunity. Brent obtained a temporary order preventing us from contacting CrownStream shareholders, arguing that we were manipulating the vote for personal gain. One of our banks froze outgoing transfers after an anonymous compliance complaint, and payroll was due in 4 days. The $2 million that had made me rich overnight now looked small against legal bills, indemnities, and the promises I had made to people who trusted us. Venture funds offered rescue money, but each wanted control of Ghostlight if we defaulted. The system highlighted one offer as financially excellent and ethically disastrous. I rejected it. Then I did something harder. I gathered the team and showed them our accounts. No heroic speech, no promise that belief could replace salary. I told them we could pay everyone except Iris and me for 3 months, or pay full salaries for 6 weeks, and risk closing after that. They voted for 3 months, and voluntarily reduced hours, so no junior employee would lose health coverage. Their choice revealed a fortune the system had never shown me, because it could not exist until I trusted them with the truth. We moved operations from the laundromat into borrowed rooms above Leo's uncle's repair shop. At night, the place smelled of rubber, solder, and the dumplings his aunt left outside our door. Iris and I slept there twice, separated from the team by a hanging tarp and an agreement that exhaustion was not consent. On the 3rd night, she found me staring at the escrow account, calculating how much easier everything would be if I sold Ghostlight and abandoned the creator claims. She sat beside me on the floor and asked what my younger self would do with $1 million. I said he would buy a house where notices never appeared on the door. And after the house? She asked. I had no answer. She rested her head on my shoulder. I admitted that wealth had not erased the feeling that one bad week could send me back to choosing between food and electricity. Iris said security was not a number large enough to silence memory. It was knowing which people would still answer when the number changed. I turned toward her. Our kiss began softly and deepened until the laptop nearly slid from my knees. She laughed against my mouth, pulled me closer, then stopped when footsteps sounded below. Nothing about the moment was polished or performative. That made it more intimate than any fantasy Brent sold online. In the morning, we discovered that somebody had spray-painted THIEF across the repair shop shutter. Leo's aunt was already scrubbing it away. When I apologized, she handed me a brush and said, "Then help." We cleaned it together before sunrise. A student filmed us, and the clip spread widely not because I looked powerful, but because I did not. Public sympathy returned, which was useful, but I was more changed by the hour. No camera captured afterward, when Leo's family fed the whole team and argued about whether dumplings counted as breakfast. Brent had built loyalty by making people afraid to lose access. We were building it by making sure no one had to pretend the risk was smaller than it was. The court lifted the communication restriction after pre-approved Brent's lawyers had omitted the employee option clause from their filing. Yet, our strongest evidence still depended on Chloe, and the night before her regulatory interview she disappeared. Her phone went dark near the river. Social media immediately claimed I had silenced her. Police questioned me while Brent went live asking the public to pray for the woman caught between 2 obsessive men. Iris stayed beside me through 6 hours of interviews, but I could feel an old terror searching for a target. The system identified Chloe's last cab, a discontinued hotel account, and a safe deposit key registered under her grandmother's name. None proved where she was. For once, the fortune trail created possibilities instead of certainty. I wanted Dex to break into the cab network. He refused because doing so would contaminate anything we found. I accused him of cowardice. He answered, "You hired me because I say no before you become him." The words landed because they sounded like Iris. We followed lawful paths, requesting emergency records through police and contacting Chloe's attorney. At dawn, her attorney received a scheduled voice message. Chloe had gone willingly to a small motel outside the city after Brent's security chief warned that her brother would be attacked if she testified. She did not trust the police because one detective had appeared in photographs at a Lawson charity event. Her fear was not irrational. The system traced the charity donation and showed no direct corruption, only a relationship Brent had weaponized through suggestion. We arranged protection through a federal investigator from another district. When Chloe emerged, she carried a paper ledger she had kept while working as Brent's assistant. She had written dates, transfers, and instructions by hand because she knew digital files could be altered. It was admissible as a contemporaneous record, but not enough alone. More importantly, it led investigators to a lawful subpoena for the matching accounts. Chloe apologized for running. Iris told her survival did not require apology, but testimony required consistency. Chloe looked at the two of us and understood without being told that we were together. Pain passed across her face, followed by something like relief. She asked to speak to me alone. Iris agreed, though her shoulders tightened. Chloe said she had imagined that once Brent fell, I would look at her and remember the rooftop had been a mistake. It was a mistake, I told her. But mistakes still become choices when we defend them every day. She asked whether I loved Iris. I said yes, surprised by how easily the word arrived. Chloe cried quietly, not to manipulate me but because some endings hurt even when deserved. I did not hold her. I gave her a clean handkerchief and waited. Before leaving, she said, then do not turn her into the person who saves you from me. Let her be more than that. It was the wisest thing she had ever given me. That night, I told Iris the entire conversation, including the part of me that mourned the future Chloe and I once imagined. Iris did not punish the grief. She kissed my knuckles and said love was not proven by pretending no one came before. It was proven by choosing honestly in the present. I chose her, not in opposition to Chloe, not because Iris had stayed while another woman left, but because beside her I wanted to become accountable even when no enemy was watching. Brent's final move arrived before the regulators could act. CrownStream announced a spectacular product launch at Halcyon Arena, where Monarch would stream an interactive concert to 30 million viewers. At the same time, an investor vote would approve the transfer of key assets to Lawson Media Holdings, Brent's private company. If Monarch succeeded, shareholders would accept the transfer as necessary expansion. If it failed after the vote, the valuable contracts would already be gone. Our evidence could stop the transaction in court, but the emergency hearing was scheduled for the morning after the launch. Brent had chosen the gap perfectly. Then the system revealed a hidden fortune inside the proxy documents. Thousands of employee stock options had been classified as non-voting because they were unvested, but a change of control clause accelerated them immediately upon the proposed asset transfer. The employees were not powerless. They were the largest voting bloc in the room, and Brent had failed to notify them because he assumed they would never read 600 pages of amendments. Claim condition: holders must be informed before the vote and choose independently. We had 12 hours. We could not use CrownStream's internal contact list. Instead, Dex built a public verification page. Priya filed notice with the election inspector, and every creator we had helped shared the information. Leo rode between apartment buildings delivering printed instructions to night shift employees. Meridian agreed to broadcast a neutral explainer only after we indemnified them. At sunrise, more than 60% of eligible employees had verified their options. Brent tried to postpone the vote, but postponement would trigger a lender review of the shell transfers. He went ahead, believing the concert would overwhelm caution. Iris and I entered Halcyon Arena through a service corridor, surrounded by cameras. This was the same venue where Brent had first presented CrownStream years earlier using my code while I watched from the cheap seats. Now his face filled a 40-meter screen. Chloe sat in the front row under protection, no longer beside him. Brent approached me backstage in a perfectly cut black suit. He looked tired for the first time. You think employees will choose you? He asked. They do not know you. I said, they do not have to choose me, they only have to choose themselves. He offered me one last deal, $20 million, ownership of Ghostlight, and public vindication if I supported the transfer. He would keep Monarch, the shell companies, and control. Through the system, the offer glowed with genuine value. It was not a trap. Brent finally understood that I could not be frightened cheaply, so he tried respecting my price. For one dangerous second, I imagined accepting. My mother would never worry again. Iris and I could walk away. Leo's company could be fully funded. Then I looked beyond the numbers at the stagehands, junior coders, moderators, and artists whose work had filled Brent's hidden vaults. You still think fortune is whatever one man can carry out before the building burns, I said. That is why you are going to lose. The vote opened as the concert countdown began. Employee ballots poured in against the transfer. Brent ordered the election inspector to invalidate them. The inspector refused, citing our notice. At that moment, Monarch failed. Streams across the world fractured into black squares as its stolen derivative collided with an authentication safeguard built into Ghostlight. I had not sabotaged it. The safeguard had existed from the first version to prevent unauthorized deployments. Brent demanded that I disable it. 30 million viewers saw his smooth presentation dissolve into panic. I would not hold the audience hostage, so I offered an emergency license live, addressed to CrownStream rather than Brent's private entity, conditioned on creator data deletion, employee control of the board, and independent audit. The terms appeared on the arena screen. Brent called it extortion. Iris stepped onto the stage and explained that the license fee was $1, no personal enrichment, no transfer to read signal. The only price was restoring ownership and oversight to the people whose work made the platform valuable. The crowd, confused at first, began to understand. Employees voted from their phones. The transfer failed by 9 points. The board suspended Brent, pending investigation, and accepted the license. I entered the authorization key. Across the arena, black squares became faces again. Music surged from the speakers, and 30 million people watched a company change hands without a fist thrown or a sports car exploded. Brent stood beside me in the blue light, emptied not of money but of control. You were nobody yesterday, he said. No, I replied. Yesterday, you just owned the room that decided who counted. Security escorted him away while the concert continued. Winning did not feel like the videos promised. There was no perfect morning when every wound became proof that pain had been necessary. Investigations took months. Brent was charged with securities fraud and obstruction, but his lawyers fought every count. CrownStream employees elected a new board, and the company survived only after selling non-essential assets and paying creators from a restitution pool. Evan pleaded guilty to falsifying records and received a reduced sentence for cooperation. Chloe corrected her testimony publicly. People still called her a gold digger, a victim, a villain, or a secret hero depending on which version earned more clicks. The truth was less convenient. She had betrayed me, been manipulated, harmed others, and eventually chose to help. I forgave her without inviting her back into my life. On the day her brother left the hospital, she returned the silver promise ring by mail. Inside was a note. We did make it, just not together. I kept the note and melted the ring into a tiny plate mounted inside Reed Signal's first server case, where no one could mistake a promise for ownership again. Brent's mansion was sold, the Veyron returned to its lender, and the internet celebrated his fall with the same appetite it had used on mine. I refused interview requests asking me to mock him. Revenge had started my engine, but it could not be allowed to steer. Reed Signal became a public benefit company that recovered hidden ownership for young creators, inventors, and workers. We made money far more than the $2 million that transformed my night, but every deal published its fee and gave original contributors voting rights. Leo's battery modules passed safety certification and won a city pilot. He became wealthy on paper, then continued delivering prototypes on the same scratched motorcycle until Iris forced him to buy brakes that worked. Dex built security tools that made lawful evidence preservation affordable. Priya led our creator rights division and frightened corporations in 3 languages. Iris accepted co-founder equity only after our governance rules made her veto independent of our relationship. We dated slowly as promised. There were late dinners eaten above contracts, sleepy kisses in elevator mirrors, and one weekend by the coast when we turned off every device and learned that desire could be tender without needing an audience. She saw the parts of me still afraid of an empty account. I saw how praise made her tense because her father had once been praised as brilliant before his fraud emerged. We did not repair each other like damaged investments. We practiced telling the truth before fear could compound. On the first anniversary of the rooftop party, Meridian invited us to a gala in the same building. Chloe was not there. Brent was awaiting trial. The dessert table still sold strawberry soda for $11.40. I bought 2. My card did not decline. Iris lifted her glass and asked whether I wanted to look down at the city that had once laughed at me. We walked to the rail. The system activated without my command, and gold lines spread over the skyline. Undervalued buildings, dormant patents, forgotten accounts, disputed deeds, and millions of possible fortunes. For the first time, I felt no hunger to claim them. Then the lines faded until only Iris remained beside me, not marked by a price or potential, simply real. The inner voice spoke one final message. Infinite fortune condition achieved. Value recognized without need for possession. I asked what that meant. Growth will continue. Measurement is no longer required. The interface disappeared. I waited for panic, but relief came instead. Iris studied my expression. I had told her about the system after the arena, expecting disbelief. She had listened, tested every rule I described, and then asked the question no one else would have thought to ask. What would I be when it stopped telling me where treasure was? Now I gave her my answer. Someone who finally knows what to look for. Below us, a delivery rider paused to help a stranger whose groceries had spilled across the sidewalk. A janitor in the neighboring tower practiced dance steps in an empty office. Somewhere behind a dorm window, another broke student was building something nobody wealthy had noticed yet. The city had not changed. My attention had. Iris leaned into me, her shoulder warm under my. She joked that if I was done seeing secret millions, I could finally learn to see laundry before it became a geological layer. I promised nothing. She kissed me anyway. A photographer caught the moment, and by morning the image appeared beside headlines calling me the overnight billionaire who destroyed the man who stole his girlfriend. They were wrong in nearly every way. Chloe had not been stolen. She had chosen, and so had I. Brent had not made me nobody. I had accepted his valuation because I was afraid to name my own. The system had not made me rich by producing money. It had shown me that fortunes already existed in abandoned code, unread clauses, ignored workers, frightened witnesses, and the trust built when power submitted to rules. Money arrived overnight. Becoming someone capable of holding it took much longer. As Iris and I left the roof, I passed the payment terminal where my card had failed 1 year before. For a second, I remembered the laughter, the ring on the table, and Brent asking when. I smiled at the answer. I finally understood. Not when I became richer than him. Not when Chloe regretted leaving. Not when the world learned my name. I made it the moment I stopped begging people who profited from my doubt to tell me what I was worth.